There are three main issues I'd like to address this week. The first is Trinidad and Tobago's relief effort for the devastation that has taken place in Dominica. As you all would be aware, unfortunately, after the passage of Hurricane Irma, there then came Hurricane Maria, which hit our CARICOM sister isle of Dominica as a Category 5 hurricane. We had announced earlier this week that the Prime Minister of Dominica had reached out to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago that evening via the Secretary General of CARICOM, but then unfortunately Dominica lost all communication at about 2 a.m. the morning after it hit. The government of Trinidad and Tobago from 5 a.m. that morning moved immediately into our protocols and our procedures. We had a meeting with the Office of the Prime Minister, Ministry of National Security, Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, and various organizations, ODPM, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, Caribbean Airlines, Immigration, and a number of public servants at 9 o'clock the following morning. And the National Helicopter Services Limited, of course, which has been doing yeoman service, initially out of Antigua for St. Martin and Tortola, and now in Dominica. So what happened is yesterday, our helicopter, National Helicopter Services helicopter, arrived in St. Lucia, which is a base for operations for providing relief in Dominica. They took up some of our Coast Guard personnel and our Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force along with them. So we had boots on the ground yesterday feeding information back to us. I'm pleased to say that this morning we have been in contact with Prime Minister Stuart out of Dominica. And yesterday one of our Coast Guard vessels set sail and it arrived in Dominica. Up to before Cabinet, it had not been able to dock as yet because the seas are still rough in and off the coast of Dominica. That Coast Guard vessel took up a number of our Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force first responder personnel as well as supplies. I told Prime Minister Stuart this morning that we're on standby off the coast. We sent one of the small vessels off of that larger vessel to get personnel on the ground in Dominica. Our helicopter has made a number of trips from St. Lucia to Dominica providing relief, and that Coast Guard vessel has quite a lot of relief on it as well to get onto the coast of Dominica. You all should have seen by now a media release from the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, which is working along with ODPM in terms of coordinating relief efforts and supplies, food and other supplies, clothes, etc., that private citizens in Trinidad and Tobago would like to donate to Dominica. There are a number of collection points that are focused in that Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force media release from this morning, including the Port of Spain, Regiment Headquarters, I think TT Post's administrative office up in Piarco, etc. We're asking that citizens drop off the items they'd like to donate to these locations. We will then get them to the Port of Spain, and there are some private sector efforts to get supply vessels to then go up. We may be sending a Coast Guard supply vessel up as well. So at this time, there's still a lot of assessment going on, but the good news is Trinidad and Tobago, playing a leadership role in the Caribbean, was able to be one of the first responders, both with an air asset, that is our helicopter from National Helicopter Services Limited, as well as marine vessel through the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. And we will continue our efforts, and now we will continue to be able to communicate, thankfully, directly with the government of Dominica to see in what ways we can assist. Of course, being very mindful of our current economic circumstances. But despite those circumstances, we have been able now to assist both in Antigua as well as in Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda as well as Dominica, over the past couple of weeks, and in the evacuation of our citizens from St. Martin and also Tortola. Caribbean Airlines have also been playing a very important role in this, and the Liat planes that had come to get away from Hurricane Maria were based in Piarco and have also taken some supplies up as they head northwards. The second issue that I'd like to address, and we're using this live media conference to address, is something that took place that has disturbed us at the government level and we find to be very dishonest and distasteful, by the opposition yesterday at a joint select committee in Parliament. And unfortunately, as has become characteristic of Senator Mark, who is a previous Speaker of the House and is now holding the portfolio of Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate. So he is playing, this is Senator Wade Mark, who has played and continues to play a leadership role in the opposition and in the United National Congress. As I say, he was a former Speaker, has in the most blatant and naked form tried to mislead the public of Trinidad and Tobago, and we're calling into question the reason why he would want to do so in yesterday's Joint Select Committee meeting to do with inquiries with respect to the procurement of vessels at the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Members of the media, wider listening and looking public of Trinidad and Tobago, yesterday Senator Mark made the most blatant attempt to once again mislead the public of Trinidad and Tobago. You would recall that on Monday, the Honorable Prime Minister attended before this same Joint Select Committee, and in a very well-prepared and calculated manner, supported by documentation, which he presented to the Parliament on Monday in the form of the Christian Mute report into the port. He presented the report as well as all of the supporting documents to the Parliament on Monday. So there was a full time of Tuesday and Wednesday morning up to Wednesday afternoon for members to avail themselves of the documentation that the Prime Minister provided to the Parliament. You would recall on Monday the Prime Minister referred to one specific document whilst he was appearing before the Joint Select Committee. And he took his time to very carefully read into the Hansard and read for the attention of all those at the committee level as well as those who are looking on at live television, one particular document, an email, and then an attached letter to that email. The Prime Minister read the whole email and letter into the record, and that document is before the Parliament since Monday. Yesterday we had Senator Wade Mark come in the most dishonest and despicable manner attempt to mislead us, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, with respect to the email address on that email. The email address on that email, and I have copies here for the media, which I will leave with you after. This is an email that is dated Thursday, the 25th of May, 2017, from Oscar Runao, who is a representative of the owner of the former Cabo Star and Baja Ferries in Mexico, dated the 25th of May, 2017, and it is addressed very clearly to Leon, Leon G, Leon Grant, at patnt.com. Yesterday, Senator Mark tried to mislead not only his colleagues at this Joint Select Committee, not only the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, not only those who were present before it, but also the population of Trinidad and Tobago, and suggest to Mr. Leon Grant that the Prime Minister had referred to an email address of Leon Grant or Leon G at patt.com. Where Senator Mark got that from, only he can tell the population of Trinidad and Tobago. But the documentary evidence in my possession, which I will leave with you, and which the Prime Minister specifically referred to and left with the Parliament and read out into the Hansard on Monday, has the email address that I've just referred to. And for Senator Mark and the opposition and anyone else who is going to attempt to mislead the population of Trinidad and Tobago, what you did not know is that on this occasion, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, through the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs, has already begun to conduct a forensic audit, a forensic investigation and examination into this and other pieces of email. In fact, what happened when certain persons were sent on suspension, through the Office of the Attorney General, we seized telephones and we also seized computer equipment, and the server associated with the port. So Senator Mark's attempt, which we understand goes to the highest level of the UNC, the United National Congress, to mislead the population of Trinidad and Tobago, and certainly to provide Mr. Grant yesterday with an opportunity to say that an email that was put to him by Senator Mark was not in fact his email, is a complete figment of Senator Mark's imagination. A person who has been the Speaker of the House and is now the leader of opposition business in the Senate. Because not only does the document speak for itself, ladies and gentlemen, but we also have it forensically imaged from the server at the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. So him attempting to lead Mr. Grant to say that a specific email that he put to him is not Mr. Grant's is of absolutely no moment with respect to the truth that is presented to Trinidad and Tobago by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, but furthermore forensically and via documentary evidence and now also imagery evidence, we know for a fact it is not true what Senator Mark has referred to. So we take very high umbrage and offense to what he has done in blatantly trying to mislead not only the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, but the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and trying to lead an attack on the Honorable Prime Minister, who for the first time as a Prime Minister went and presented before a Joint Select Committee and did not speak loosely, but left documentary evidence in support of what he said with the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Having regard to this incident led by Senator Mark yesterday, we as a government have taken a decision now to present to the media, who will now present it to the population of Trinidad and Tobago, exactly the document that the Prime Minister was referring to. This is an offense against the parliamentary standing orders, the rules that govern us as parliamentarians, etc. To have a parliamentarian try to mislead not only the Parliament but the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is something that we chastise at the highest level, and we call upon the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to mark this event and to mark exactly, no pun intended, where it came from. The last topic I'd like to deal with here this afternoon is that today at Cabinet, a decision was taken that the Office of the Prime Minister will lead a conversation with the whole of Trinidad and Tobago on live television next week, Wednesday, the 27th of September, from about 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. There will be broadcasts on live television out of the Office of the Prime Minister, something called Spotlight on Trinidad and Tobago's Financial Circumstances. The format that this will take is the Prime Minister will be the head of proceedings. He will give a contextual outlay of what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. This will be followed by a very detailed presentation out of the Ministry of Finance of exactly what Trinidad and Tobago's financial circumstances are. We will be providing the public of Trinidad and Tobago on this occasion with all of the detail, so you will understand on live television exactly what the country of Trinidad and Tobago, the nation of Trinidad and Tobago, and us as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are actually facing when we talk about the financial circumstances. We will be inviting business leaders from all of the chambers of commerce, the Energy Chamber, Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and the various other chambers of commerce. So those business leaders from these institutions to also come and participate in this discussion, as well as the labor leaders of Trinidad and Tobago, who the Prime Minister has been meeting with over the last month. We will also be inviting the academics of Trinidad and Tobago from the various universities to participate. So what we're doing for the first time in Trinidad and Tobago on live television is the government will present what is the state of the economy and our financial circumstances, and then invite all of these persons who hold leadership positions from the private and business sector, the labor part of Trinidad and Tobago, the academia of Trinidad and Tobago, to then come and present what they think are possible solutions for Trinidad and Tobago. So for the first time, this national conversation will be taking place under the leadership of the Prime Minister, with our government for the first time presenting to the country in this unbridled way on live television from about 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the afternoon, exactly what is the state of affairs and the economic, good afternoon, Prime Minister, and the economic and financial circumstances in Trinidad and Tobago. And the difference in format now is we will be looking to those who hold leadership positions outside of the government, in academia, in the labor movement, and in the business community, to come before the population of Trinidad and Tobago and present what you think are possible solutions. Because what we found happening all too often is we all, as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, have a role to play in Trinidad and Tobago. And now, under the Prime Minister's leadership, we're inviting those voices who very often have solutions, very often have commentary on how to deal with Trinidad and Tobago. Come and sit in the naked open and have that conversation, not with the government, but with the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Present what you think your ideas and what your solutions are after the government has laid all of the facts on the table as to what has happened with various things, our revenue, our foreign exchange position, what the wage bill is. We will present what Trinidad, the financial circumstances of Trinidad are at this time, and then we're hoping that the labor movement, the business community, and academia accept the invitation to come before the country and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and present what you say your solutions are. And let's have that conversation together in front of the citizens and the future generations of Trinidad and Tobago. The invitations will go out tomorrow. It was a decision just taken at Cabinet. We will also be looking to invite the media, of course, will be present, other school children and other sectors of society to be present. But those are the four main bodies that will sit at the table in front of Trinidad and Tobago to present what they think are the solutions. Business, labor, academia, and the government of Trinidad and Tobago as to how we should go forward. Of course, this is taking place at a time just before the presentation of the national budget, which will take place on the 2nd of October, the following week. So those are the three main items that I wanted to present to you, the media, and the listening and viewing public of Trinidad and Tobago. We've had join us, the Honorable Prime Minister has just joined us at the conference, at this media conference. So we'll now invite for any questions that you may have, unless it is you wanted to. The Prime Minister will now address us.
Thank you very much, Minister Young. Thank you very much, members of the media. My apologies for joining you late, but there's so much happening and requiring constant attention that this order of proceedings might look a little out of the ordinary, but I thought I would come and join for one specific reason, and it was to talk to you a little bit about the government's response and continuing response to the situation in Dominica. I recall when I was 13 years old, I experienced Hurricane Flora, 12 or 13 I think it was, in Tobago, and coming home from school in that hurricane, arriving in my village to meet the entire village devastated. And I understand very fully what's happening in Dominica right now. On that day I came home, there was no house, no clothes, no nothing, because we had literally been blown away. And Tobago was broken into as many pieces as Dominica is today. I have not yet been able to speak directly with Prime Minister Stuart, but I've been talking to his office and been in touch with the CARICOM Secretariat, and there are a certain amount of discussions taking place. What I want to propose after analyzing the situation is what more can Trinidad and Tobago do. You would have heard from Minister Young that we have made available some airlift and some sea transport. We are not in a position to contribute financially to the reconstruction of Dominica, but certainly in situations like these, whatever we have available to us, we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we've always been a generous people, especially in these situations, and would want to share. And one of the things that we have is our own accommodation, whatever it might be. And given the fact that there are tens of thousands of Dominicans now who have neither shelter nor probably means of sustenance, I am proposing that in Trinidad and Tobago that we waive or encourage in such a way that a number of Dominicans, those who can find contact in Trinidad and Tobago, either by way of friend or family, and if they can make their way to Trinidad and find a household that will accept them, that we will waive all restrictions for the next 6 months to any citizen of Dominica who find his or her way to Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm saying to people in Trinidad and Tobago, if you do have accommodation and you have the means, the wherewithal and the inclination to support a Dominican, arrangements will be made so that you can identify yourself. And for the next 6 months, Trinidad and Tobago will open our doors, our homes, our pots, and I dare say our schools to citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica. And that is how we intend to continue supporting the people of Dominica who have been brutalized, if I may copy the word of the Prime Minister of Dominica. The island has been severely devastated. The Prime Minister has made an appeal today to the world asking for assistance. And insofar as we are concerned, Dominica is our brother. And in this situation, we must become our brother's keeper. And that's what I wanted to announce to you. This is Mr. Young's press conference, so questions to him.
Yes. Members of the media, take some questions if you have any.
Joel, I just came to deal with that matter, right? So I presume that your question is about that matter.
Yes, I'm just wondering, how does this waiver work? What happens to those citizens from Dominica who find accommodation here and the 6-month period ends?
Well, then the normal CARICOM arrangement will apply.
For those of us who don't understand what that means.
Well, CARICOM citizens are free to enter any CARICOM territory, and when they come here, they can stay for a prescribed period of time, and then they have to return to their homes. And if they get an extension, they have to apply for it and be processed and so on. But so assume that this period that I just mentioned is that we make an effort to encourage those who can get here, and I would think, given the nature of the population, might be 1,000, 2,000 people, 500 people, but it wouldn't be the whole of Dominica coming down here. So we can, and those who can arrive, they be identified as such. It's like, if they do come, we are saying to them that this generosity is available. We are not inviting everybody in Dominica, because Dominicans have their neighbors up north there, they have their families abroad, but they do have Trinidad and Tobago. So friends, household, family, or persons in our country who made themselves available can accommodate a few hundred people without it being a strain that we can't bear. It's a special moment that we need to extend that kind of generosity, you know, at the personal or household level.
Yes.
Gentlemen, good afternoon. Just to follow up on that question, Urvashi from CNC3. Now I understand the humanitarian need and, you know, as you said, generosity and all of that. But is there going to be a screening process? Because obviously there may be ex-cons, criminals, certain elements that we would not want to enter our country, one. And two, Mr. Prime Minister, given the UN statement that there are 40,000 Venezuelans in illegal and legal in Trinidad and Tobago, how does that affect us at home?
Well, the first question about who the people might be, they have to be citizens of Dominica, and unless they are listed as criminals, we would assume that they're citizens of Dominica who need our help. And of course, we would know who they are because they'll be identified on entry. They'll be identified on entry, and they will have to tell us where they're going. As I said, if they have family or friends, these have to be identified when they arrive, and then they go there. And of course, if there are people here who make themselves available to receive any person, then such persons will be identified. So it's a special arrangement for a period of time. And of course, without the hurricane, if there's a Dominican criminal who wants to come here, who is not registered and on the watch list, they can come. So this particular situation doesn't open the door to those who couldn't have come before. This is a response to their circumstance that we are saying we can help a bit more. Normally what we do is provide some money, and on this occasion, we are not aiming to provide cash, we're providing kind.
There was one family, or the sister of someone, Trinidad nationalist family in Dominica, complaining that they've not had contact with him and that the number and the mechanisms of the government have not been of any help to them thus far.
Well,
like for example, they've tried the number and so on, the foreign ministries number, well, whatever was put in as assistance for those affected by Hurricane Irma.
Okay, well, what I can tell you is what we had that was very different with Dominica. It is only this morning at about, I think 3 a.m. this morning, Dominica got back any amount of communication. So we had actually reached out to, for example, the Prime Minister of Dominica, and he came through contacting at 3 o'clock this morning. So it has been very different to what we experienced with Hurricane Irma in terms of making contact with persons in St. Martin and Tortola, etc. The number at the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs remains open. It's the same email address. As we've been receiving information, we feed it back in. I think on this occasion, the difficulty and what people may be a little concerned and anxious about is making contact with people on the ground in Dominica. I don't know how many of you all know the terrain of Dominica as well. It's very different to the BVI and St. Martin, which are pretty flat terrains. Dominica has a lot of villages scattered all over. There's a one road type of system, etc. So in terms of making contact, and that's why our Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force took a decision, rather than wait to fill up a supply vessel, they sent a smaller, quicker vessel up to Dominica so we could literally have boots on the ground to assist in locating and helping locate persons, etc. We're hoping now that communications are back up on the island, persons would then have better means of communication. One of the difficulties you have as well is with cell phones, electricity would have gone. So for persons to charge their cell phones, etc., to then make contact. But it's not on our end. Our channels of communication, ODPM, Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, remain open, and we have been taking the information of nationals who are in Dominica.
You see, while we appreciate the anxiety that would be expressed, the constraints which the circumstances dictate, the island is very, very broken. And I've been in touch with some Barbadian business in Dominica. And even as I speak to you now, they have not been able to even contact their office or their staff. There's one business house here in Trinidad and Tobago that has business in Dominica. They have not reported yet that they have been able to contact their staff, so they have no idea what has gone on there. And until we rebuild the communication, we would not be able to get a clearer picture and to contact all the people we want to. So we first had contact with Dominica at just before 2 o'clock on the morning of the hurricane. But there was nothing we could have done until by daybreak, by 5 o'clock, we were putting things in place in Trinidad and Tobago because we knew that there would have been serious damage. And the indications were by The last contact we had, that damage had begun to occur. But there was nothing we could have done. We couldn't even send the helicopter because we had no clearance as to where it was going to land, far as a fixed-wing aircraft. And until we got feedback as to the ability of the helicopter to land, and then we staged, talking about staging out of St. Lucia, and of course the vessel, the seacraft, needed more time to get there. We sent that off early, so by the time they got there, something would have been in place to receive them. But we're still waiting to be able to interact properly. And the situation is so bad that families are not able to contact their family members. Hopefully by the end of today there should be some rudimentary communication, and by tomorrow, as the days progress, we'll get more and more information. And the most important thing, we wanted to know what exactly are the first kinds of physical assistance that they need. And unfortunately for us, one of the things that they needed, we could have supplied, was the helicopter, which would have been, even without landing, could have gone in and operating out of, do the recce, and then come back. And the government of St. Lucia, the government of Barbados, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, we are doing our part to provide, because the government of Dominica has virtually been blown off. Fortunately, there has been no loss of life in that respect, but in terms of being able to deliver services to the people of Dominica, the government itself is a victim of the hurricane. So in the coming days, the structure will fall back into place. But Trinidad and Tobago, Dominica is one of our market islands. CARICOM Island has been, and we just understand what they're going through, and we'll do the best that we can to aid and assist in whatever way we can. Yeah, I think the last word we had was 9 people have died, but I don't think any of those people are in the government.
Yeah, correct.
But they're still trying to reach some communities, and there are some structures that are still to be examined. So hopefully that 9 might be the top of it, but the physical conditions are very, very difficult. Yes?
Khalifa, client from The Guardian. Prime Minister, you said restrictions would be waived for a 6-month period, correct?
Well, the normal visit would have been, is it 2 or 3 months? CARICOM stay.
I think it's 3.
I think CARICOM stay is 3 months.
3 months is 90 days.
What exactly would that mean for the people of Dominica, considering they are refugees in this country who can't
Well,
send their
I don't want to use the word refugee. I rather use it people who are being assisted. You see, normally when you come, you will have to tell immigration where you're going and satisfy immigration, and usually you have to show your means of support. And then, of course, you're restricted to a limited period of time. What we're saying, if somebody turns up here from Dominica and they can say who they're going to, but they have no means of support, that wouldn't be a ground for excluding them. We'll give them a 6-month extension, a period of 6 months to remain, because they're going to someone, either a member of family or a friend who would look after them. So that's the view I'm talking about.
Right, but you also mentioned citizens who would make themselves available. So what I'm asking is, if, for instance, a family comes from Dominica to a citizen who has volunteered to house his family, would their children be able to go to school? Would they be able to find employment during the 6-month period?
Well, we will waive those restrictions. If a family comes here with a child, and they'll be here for 4 or 5 months, 6 months, I think, given all our circumstances, we would be able to put a child in a school somewhere. It's not a normal situation. This is not, you know, I'm from Tobago, and we have a saying in Tobago that a house is never too small for family. And I think this is what is happening here. So, you know, you can waive rules and stand on ceremony, but this is a particularly difficult situation for people who we ought to be in the forefront of helping. And I'm sure that by now, Trinidad and Tobago has demonstrated that we have taken that responsibility of being in the forefront. So whatever we have, we'll share.
How will citizens who want to volunteer be able to identify themselves? Who do they need to go to?
We're going to put something in place within the next day or two to clarify that, to identify themselves. Persons who want to volunteer to something like this, Because let's put it this way, I don't know if anybody will come. But we're just putting things in place in case they need a place to go. Let them know that Trinidad and Tobago, if you have family or friends here who are prepared to look after you, come and we'll welcome you.
Will that be established upon their arrival? In other words, you'll have to at least show...
Well, no, immigration would be given the requisite, as of now, the requisite qualification as a citizen of the Commonwealth of Dominica. And we expect that our immigration officers would be seized of what the government is trying to do, or the population is trying to do.
Clear.
Prime Minister, just changing a little bit. As you're here with us, could you possibly give us your perspective on what transpired over the last 24 hours with the Ocean Flower arriving here, number one, a situation which looks like the vessel is going to go back, the Richmond has tendered for the sea bridge. And then we still have these questions of a letter of credit which may or may not be frozen and any potential liability we have. And given all that has transpired, is it in your view appropriate for us to be even entertaining the possibility of Richmond's coming back to offer us the same boat which we refused?
I would have preferred to not even be talking about this, but since you put the question to me, let me answer it first. There are some freedoms that still exist, okay? If a vessel is owned by anybody and that vessel's owner wants to sail into Trinidad and Tobago, there are rules and regulations in place, and anybody could sail into Trinidad and Tobago. Secondly, there was a process that was taking place before, which resulted in the port selecting the Ocean Flower for a job here in Trinidad and Tobago. That contractual arrangement has been terminated for cause, and the relevant authority in Trinidad and Tobago, speaking to that situation, has quite clearly said what the situation is. Subsequent to that, the port went out to another tender, and I guess if they go out for another tender in 5 years' time, anybody with a boat is free to subscribe to the tender. And then the port will evaluate what has been subscribed. So I don't want to speak for Ocean Flower or Flower Ocean. That is a matter for the owner of the boat, where they sail and where they go and do the repairs and whatever. And of course, if the port is seeking a vessel, there's a process, and owners of vessels can put their vessel up for evaluation. There's no law against that. There's an evaluation exercise, and there's a selection process. And I think we should just let it go. I know there's a lot of conspiracies and a lot of, I mean, let me tell you what is, anyway, let me not say anything at this stage, because my colleague has just dealt with a matter which I hope you all understand how serious and nasty that matter has been dealt with yesterday. I went as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to a commission of the Parliament sitting in inquiry with the expectation of getting to the facts. I produced documents. All the positions I took and assertions I made and information I offered were on the basis of documents. And I was horrified to see a former Speaker of the House who knows the process, a leader of our opposition in the Senate, deliberately misrepresent a key piece of information to cast doubt on the presentation I made in that inquiry, and in so doing, deliberately provide an opportunity for a public officer, a public official who has serious questions to answer, to provide that official with a loophole to say, that was not my email, because the Prime Minister's email, the Prime Minister's statement. And then, to speak over and over in the inquiry, that it appears as though the information supplied by the Prime Minister has been contradicted by XYZ. That is the behavior in a parliamentary committee. And I tell you, When I left that committee on Monday evening, I was pleased to have gone. I was proud that the Parliament is operating in that way, and I felt that there was hope for these operations to assist us with this whole question of accountability and standing up to corrupt practice in our agencies. And to see that the leader of the opposition in the Senate, a former speaker, could so deliberately misrepresent key facts so as to allow misinformation to prevail and hopefully to allow an officer to slide away from his responsibility. I am disgusted, but I'm not surprised, because Wade Mark is the same person who was Speaker of the House when I moved a motion involving the Minister of Finance and insider trading at State Bank FCB. I prosecuted that motion with documents and had a debate going in the Parliament. When the Parliament reconvened, Wade Mark, the Speaker, appeared in his chair and told this country that he had correspondence from the judiciary that the matter that was taking place in the Parliament was offensive to the judiciary. And on that basis, he made a ruling and ended the debate. Turned out to be a lie. But it had the effect of preventing Finance Minister Larry Hawaii from ever responding to the allegations that he had questions to answer about insider trading at FCB. So what happened yesterday didn't happen for the first time. And it is said that the Ethiopian can never change his skin nor the leopard its spots. It happened yesterday again.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Rowley MD. The whole purpose of a JSC is, of course, for transparency. So in an instance where, as the government is alleging Mr. Mark...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second part.
In an instance where the government is alleging that Mr. Mark misled, or in a general sense...
We're not alleging, we're stating.
What is the legal or any other punishment that would happen for someone that is found to be misleading?
Well, the Parliament prorogues tonight at midnight. So the session of Parliament ends tonight by law, and a new session will start next week Friday. That's the third session of this government. Had the Parliament not been proroguing at this point in time, this matter most certainly would have been taken to the Privileges Committee. The conduct of Member Mark in that committee would have been taken for parliamentary scrutiny. And I say to the population, if this is the kind of thing that's going to happen in Trinidad and Tobago, it brings to the fore a cynicism as to whether we will ever be able to rise to the occasion to treat with our inherent difficulties, not the least of which is all-pervasive corruption in Trinidad and Tobago. Because if a person in Senator Mark's position could do what he did yesterday, and the beneficiary of that misinformation, that deliberate misconduct, is an officer on the port who must explain to us why the board of the port was not allowed to speak to the owner or to even know that the owner had a vessel. And you look at what it happens. It happens in the inquiry. We are having an inquiry to find out what happened. And you get that level of misconduct. So apparently smart manism, no bounds in Trinidad and Tobago.
And just to give you all the context of where this lies, listening to the Prime Minister on Monday presented this document that we're going to leave with you all that shows on the 25th of May, the then owner of the Cabo Star approached via email and letter the management of the port, offering the Cabo Star at a price that we know is significantly less, approximately 6,000 US less a day to the management of the port of Trinidad and Tobago. It was not taken up. And then what happens is Bridgman comes sometime after, purchases the vessel from this owner, Baja Ferries, and gives it to Trinidad and Tobago at a significantly higher price. We worked out this morning, had the management of the port of Trinidad and Tobago presented this to Trinidad and Tobago in these trying emergency circumstances, we would have saved annually over $15 million by dealing directly with the then owner, the Mexican owner of the Cabo Star. The Prime Minister goes before a joint select committee, presents documentary evidence that we have confirmed forensically exist. And this is how Senator Mark reacts, trying to scuttle it and trying to make trying to present a case that it is in fact not a real document. It is real. We have forensically identified that it is real. Why did Senator Mark take that approach yesterday is the question.
And I'll say something else to him. There's a lot has been said at the inquiry about the board. But the management of the port was operating this particular development. The board was treating with unsolicited proposals at that time. Remember there was a tender process that threw up one boat, so the tender process was unsuccessful. So any offerings to the port, the board was treating with it. In other words, who is offering us a boat? Where can we find the boat? Other offerings were dealt with. That one never came to the attention of the board as per the board's testimony. But a purchase was made from the Mexican owner. It then became available to the board. And the board was encouraged as to what to pay, guided by the management. And taxpayers ended up paying what we have agreed to pay for the vessel. And we have an inquiry. And parliamentary inquirers, like Senator Mark, go out of their way to make it difficult for the population to hold accountable persons who have placed that kind of burden on the shoulder of the taxpayer. This is the kind of example you got to understand. The action of one individual not doing what they're supposed to do, as simple as that simple little action, $15 million a year more we have to pay, contracted to pay to this owner.
Senator Mark's actions, as you have described it, somehow taking away
The
from
the only way to describe Senator Mark's action is reprehensible. That's the only word that I would use.
Clarify from you whether you are saying, based on your statements, that that takes away from the work of the committee since it began.
No, it does more than that. It demeans the parliament and it damages the public interest. This is an inquiry into the conduct of people. The Prime Minister comes there and brings documentation to accuse members of the port management of serious misconduct. The Parliament is examining the documentation to establish fact, to bring about accountability. And the testimony and the documentation provided is misrepresented in the inquiry to the public, creating doubt. And I dare say dismissal, so as to follow a particular agenda. The only agenda that this government has is to get to the truth, get to the bottom, and to hold every single individual accountable.
To the GSC sitting, if I remember correctly, a commitment was made by Senator Mark and I think the chairman of the committee as well to look at that specific, go back to the documents, verify the email address and put back the question to Mr. Grant.
I don't know what all that means. I don't know what that means. What I do know is that Senator Mark introduced into the testimony that the email that I provided was spelled out, and he spelled it out, and it was therefore presented to the witness. The witness was then able to say, that is not my email address. And then, of course, a lot was said and done about me providing wrong email address. I'm saying the email was provided in documentary form in the Parliament on Monday. I read it into there, and the document was there through the Mute report. So if Senator Mark wanted to make an issue or a presentation on the email's veracity, he ought to have, and he had available to him, the document that I presented in the Parliament directly or indirectly through the Moutier report. He chose not to do that. He chose to come there with an email of his own concoction so as to allow Mr. Grant to say, that is not my email, and to allow himself to say that the testimony as the witness provided, in this case, me as the witness, that my testimony is questionable. Yes, it was deliberate. I have no reason to believe otherwise.
Mr. Young, I just wanted to ask you from a legal point of view, another thing which Senator Mark and I think Mr. Parry might have hit on a lot during the GSC was this whole issue with the letter of credit. Now, from a legal point of view, now we have today the Vice President of Bridgeman's claiming that the letter was not cancelled, and the Works Ministry yesterday saying that it's technically frozen until it expires in September 20th. Could you give us an exact...
I don't want to get into any level of discussion and detail with respect to letters of credit. They're very, very specific financial instruments. I have not examined the letter of credit myself. What we do know is the Ministry of Works on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago cancelled and terminated the contract with the Ocean Flower with Bridgman. There are a number of legal circumstances that flow from that that may affect the letter of credit. At the end of the day, the whole country knows and the population knows that the contract was terminated. There's been no disagreement by Bridgman that it has been terminated, and that there are certain circumstances and certain consequences that will then affect letters of credit in those instances. But I haven't studied it myself.
As the ministry contends yesterday, do you agree that we are not faced with any exposure financially or otherwise at this point?
I haven't looked at the letter of credit myself. Letters of credit are very, very specific items, but we will have recourse against Bridgman in these circumstances.
Given the statements made by both you, Prime Minister, and you, Minister Young, when the committee presents its report, I believe such reports are presented to the Parliament, how will the government treat with it, given the statements you've made today concerning what you are saying about Senator Mark?
Well, I don't know that that is open for discussion at this stage. I mean, the committee is still meeting. There are a number of persons on the committee, a number of my colleagues. Let's see what the report says. I have no doubt that there are other members of the committee who will not stoop to that level.
So you will dismiss the report entirely?
No. Let the report will be prepared and presented to the Parliament, and the report will stand on the basis of what the facts support.
There was a statement made yesterday by former head of the Public Service, Mr. Dubas, concerning the THA not appearing before the committee, and he is saying he quoted both sections of the THA Act and I think the Port Authority Act. I could be corrected here, but he's saying that basically the Chief Secretary argued a case for the abolition of the THA as it exists now. In other words, then, that he is saying there was some responsibility here on the part of the THA. What is your take on that, sir?
I don't want to comment on Mr. Damas' testimony. I mean, these are, that the committee, the terms of reference of the committee had to do with the procurement of the ferries and maintenance, and persons who went and expressed their views and their speculations. I don't know that I want to comment on that.
So what about representatives of the Tobago Tourism and Hotel Association saying that they would like to have not just representation on the board of the Port Authority and Caribbean Airlines, but be involved in the issue of procurement and the tendering process in instances like this?
That's a demonstration also of how people take positions without appropriate information. And sometimes it sounds good and it misleads this country no end. You would have heard Senator Mark trying to question me about Tobagonians having been promised a place on the tendering process and so on. Now, if Senator Mark was honest, he would know that the Port Authority Act is very specific, and the tender committee of the composition of the tender committee of the port is spelled out in law. So you can't put people in there if the law doesn't permit them to be in there. And the people from Tobago, again, who may never have read that act or who don't know what the law requires, making forceful statements about wanting to be in the tender process, are simply operating outside of proper information. And what I'm hoping that they will do, if you're going to be that forceful in your case, you really need to spend a little time finding out what the facts are. Because what some people are demanding, the law doesn't permit. What some people are advancing, sometimes the law doesn't permit it. But in Trinidad and Tobago, people start off arguments by saying, I don't know. And having said I don't know, they then proceed to prosecute a case on information that is questionable. So the tender process, the tendering process on the port is very specific as to who the people are by posts and positions, who form the management tender committee, and then you have a board involvement and so on, an evaluation committee. What we will look for at the level of the government on the port is the first opportunity for persons who are not so specific to the process to join the process and have a say. And it might very well be that the first time Tobagoans who are not in those positions, as spelled out by law, who can interfere in the process, are people who are invited by the evaluation committee or by the board, certainly not by the management. So you look for a place where they can come in because there are laws to be observed. Okay? It sounds, as if I'm putting up barriers, but these are barriers are there in law. We can't infuse people from Tobago because they want to be there into the management tenders committee. Because they do an evaluation, there's an evaluation committee that's made up of, and spelled out how it's made up, and then there's the board. So somewhere in there, without breaching the law, we, and I said so in Tobago when I met with the business community up there, we will try and find an opportunity for there to be a Tobago involvement in the evaluation when the port seeks to select one of the number of vessels that we hope would have been offered for the service. And that's simple and straightforward. But you know what, I'm telling you something, huh? One of the problems this country is experiencing right now is that they have become beaten down and so accustomed to being lied to that when you tell them the truth, they have difficulty accepting it. And that goes from Prime Minister to grave digger. That's the problem this country is having. The country is not accustomed to being told the truth.
Mr. Prime Minister, with all due respect, the Ocean Flower 2 is here. On August 10th, I believe, one day after the contract was terminated, they flew to Trinidad. Mr. Purdy, Vice President himself, told us that he put forward a short-term proposal to the port, not a long-term contract.
And I will ask you a question. And who speaks for the port? There's a board or a management. Either the board or the management speaks about things that happen on the port, and sometimes the minister, depending on what question you're putting. All of that might be true. What the cabo staff, what the Ocean Floor owner or manager or owner, all that is true. But what has been the response of the board to all of that? The response has simply been, the board has made very clear statements about its dealing with this particular vessel. So it's not correct to say we don't know. The people are trying to get business. They were in business with the port. The port made clear statements. I think the chairman herself would have spoken on this matter, that they have terminated, and they gave the reasons why they did terminate. And if my memory serves me right, they told the country, we had an arrangement with these people to bring their boat from Korea to Panama, to be inspected in Panama before they come to Trinidad. As part of the arrangement, when they inspected the boat in Panama, the boat did not pass muster, or that was one side. The other side was the clause, the contract. They had a period of time to deliver the boat here, and in the contract, they were allowed one extension. They had that extension. The vessel was not here, it was still in Panama. The port exercised its right under the conditions of its contract to terminate. I seem to recall the chairman of the port and statements from the port indicating that. Now, anything else done by the boat owner or the boat coming into our waters, that is a matter for them, right? And that is how the port dealt with that treatment there. If there are other issues, then they will investigate the issues. And they went into a second tender process, which closed yesterday. And I'm seeing in the papers that Ocean Flower principals offer their boat, so be it. It is for the port now to do an evaluation and determine what they do there. And we'll wait until they deal with that to come to that. But I'm not going to get into, getting exercised by what might or might not happen. If they wanted to sail to Trinidad, let them sail to Trinidad. They were free to tender, and they're free to leave when they wish, as the case might be. Nobody's under any force to do anything here. But you see, a lot of people took positions without information before. And now that the facts are coming out, some people are uncomfortable with the nature of the facts that are coming out. Because some people took the position that the problem that arose here arose inside the government, as though the government could not say no to that. The facts are not bearing that out. And some people are not happy about that. But we will tell the country what the facts are and let the chips fall where they may.
Just to make it very, very clear, the government's position, its legal position, that has been expressed to the owners of the Ocean Flower 2, is that the contract has been cancelled and terminated in accordance with the contract. Yesterday we saw, and it was actually CNC3, running something, taking pictures of the vessel with a Trinidad flag. When vessels enter our waters, part of the legal requirement is that they fly the flag. And CNC3 ran a headline saying the government allows the return of the Ocean Flower, making suggestions. And that prompted a response from the government. So we're asking, as the Prime Minister stated very clearly, our position, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, because the contract was entered into, and this is all before that Joint Select Committee. The Charter Party Agreement is the Ministry of Works and Bridgman. That contract has been terminated. There's then a tender process. Anybody's allowed to put in their vessel in a tender process, which will now be evaluated, and we're not being premature with that evaluation. So that is a clear position of the government of Trinidad and Tobago that has been articulated by its agent, the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
But the short-term day proposal...
You come back with the short-term proposal.
To use an unsolicited...
But what's the relevance of that? We've just said that the contract was terminated. There's a tender process that they've participated in.
I understand that. It's just kind of odd that they offer for the government to report to use the ship, and then it just shows up here. I understand that they are entitled, once they get permission, to use our...
May I ask you a question? What has been the port's response to this offer that you're talking about? Because I seem to recall seeing or hearing the port rejecting the offer. So the offer is of no import in that situation. And I just said, what the port is dealing with now is a brand new tender call that took place subsequent to that cancellation, where the terms of reference were put out, and the port has invited all and sundry to bid by yesterday, I think it was?
The tenders closed yesterday.
The tenders closed yesterday. That's a separate and new arrangement that the port is dealing with. All those stuff before, the position of the port is that we have terminated those arrangements which we had in place with this vessel. So if the vessel sailed to Trinidad after that, or sail next week, next month, or next year, it is not part of the process that you are alluding to. And the offer that they made, the port acknowledged that they had made some contact, or they had made some offer, which the port had rejected. So as head of the government, as far as I'm aware, that is the state of affairs as identified by the authority which is dealing with this matter.
Since the committee yesterday understands the ship is here for repairs, but is any government ministry or involved in any approval of that process?
Again, my understanding of that, and in fact speaking to immigration yesterday, the information from the owners of the vessel is come in. It has actually gone to dry docking facilities in Chaguaramas to be dry docked and to undergo some repairs. The Director of Maritime Services, I saw it reported in the newspapers, he may be one of the authorities that has to give a vessel permission to enter into our waters. That's all that it is.
And of course, those who might be wondering about the timing of all of this in relation to the whole issue, and Hence why the questions my colleague, for example, would have been asking.
We understand it very well, but we also understand that the government has to stick with the facts. I have no doubt that there are people who are the principals with that vessel who probably feel that being in Trinidad and Tobago is a good place at this point in time. Because we want a boat. We certainly want a boat. I am anxious for the port to select a vessel to put on the service to Tobago. Because as I talk to you now, I don't want to hear that the Express has broken down and Tobago does not have a service in place. So I am anxious for the port to complete the process and select a boat. So they know you want a boat. They were in Panama, they come to Trinidad and Tobago, so be it. But I don't know that that is a port or government issue. And also, I have seen in the papers today that they have said that they have put in their vessel. I understand that there are how many, the number of vessels?
It's about 12.
Well, okay, that's a lot more than the last time. The last time the port went out for a bid, we got one offer. If we get 12 now, I think there's a very good chance that one of them would meet our needs. So I don't know why we're behaving like that. There are some people who believe that if they make enough rara, they will get what they want. And all we're saying, let good order prevail and let us stick with the facts. And then we would have pleasant days where there are pleasantries to be had. And if there are unpleasantries, then we'll experience those and hold people accountable.
And Minister, on another matter, it seems as if the opposition leader is questioning essentially whether good order prevailed when you called Mr. Baksh concerning when the issue of the standard at Petrotrin arose, and she's questioning whether the question arises that you, the Prime Minister, may be guilty of misconduct and misbehavior in public office when you made the call to him.
And what do you think?
Well, I'm not the Prime Minister, so hence I'm asking you.
I came on this platform, this very podium, and I put my cards on the table, right? I was in California. I saw on my phone that this development was the subject of some presentation by the opposition leader. I know the man very well. I know his business. I know what he's involved in. I said, as a person I knew, is he your friend? Yes. So, is it abnormal in a situation like that you call to find out what is this about, what's going on here, what is this about? And I said on this podium, that's what I did. And I stand by that. Now, if that is what Senior Counsel, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, will go to court with, or go to the Integrity Commission with, that I misconducted myself, all I will say to that, that is why she has not distinguished herself in the legal profession. I can give you a number of instances where she has taken legal positions and was found to be quite wrong. And this is just the latest. Because I don't know how and by what statute my making a phone call to inquire from somebody what is the story I see in the papers, that is misconduct on my part and interfering in the investigation. Oh, what nonsense is that?
If this friend of yours did would you expect him to tell you, listen,
But I wasn't acting the capacity of judge and jury. I was simply, and that is a conversation. What is happening here? What is this? And do you have any friend? If you were in that situation and your friend called you, or I call you, I mean, what is it I'm supposed to have done? I broke a law by calling somebody? I mean, what exactly is the misconduct? I mean, let us get serious. To say that I call somebody and as a result of that, subsequent investigations. As far as I'm concerned, the opposition leader don't need any investigation. As far as she's concerned, she had all the information she needed because she went on a Sunday rant and paraded unconfirmed matter. As far as I think, Petrotrin is still looking at matters and they have all kinds of things going on, investigations. So, what does my phone call have to do with that? Is she accusing me of doing what?
Mr. Baksh, who you admitted is your friend, did it also strike you as odd that another personality, an employee of Petrotrin who was named in the report, that you would know him as well from the political platform?
And that is what I'm saying. All of that, is of interest to me. I mean, but I'm not involved in the process. No, I did not call him, right? Because, you know, the bottom line is, I mean, I called him subsequently. I should correct that. I didn't call him at the same time. I called him subsequently to find out what is this about. I spoke to Mr. Dioki Singh. You know, I see your name being called in this matter. What is this about? And he gave me, you know, an explanation on which I am not involved in any way. I'm not in the inquiries. So Mr. Dioki Singh was a PNM candidate. Twice he was a chairman of a corporation. So if what the opposition leader expects is for me to come here and lie and say I didn't ask Mr. Dioki Singh what is this about, a former chairman of the Superior Corporation, a person who I screened at least once. I screened him to make him a candidate, posting my picture with him around as proof of some wrongdoing on somebody's part. I mean, yeah, they could do these things, but then when you go and talking about misconduct and misbehavior in public office, you get into the realm of folly at that stage.
All right, we have time for one more question. They're telling us we have to wrap up.
About this, just now, I have it written down here, the spotlight on the financial situation in Trinidad and Tobago. Could you just give us maybe a cost on it? And you did explain
A what?
it.
A what?
Cost.
A cost.
How much is it going to
Oh, it's not going to be. It's not going to be free, but it will cost some money. But I think we don't have a figure yet because we're still working it out. But it's going to cost something. But it's not so much the cost as the benefit. It is.
That's exactly the benefit. We're going to have business leaders, labor leaders, academics, and of course the government. The budget would be presented a few days after. How relevant will their contributions be? Would it be incorporated in the budget? I mean, if we see labor leaders calling for greater salaries, would we automatically see it? What's the relevance of it?
It is the relevance of it is mainly for the public. This exercise is for the public to become aware of what we are dealing with and what the options are. So they will be in a better position to evaluate the options that the government is pursuing. That is the gist of the whole thing. Because I am sure that you would have heard Labour saying that there are certain things that certain directions the country should go in. And I'm sure you would have heard a number of voices from the universities and from business saying certain things. Some of those things are dissonant, some of them are in sync. But it's a one-day event where I hope the population would pay attention and become informed as to what our circumstances are.
Last question,
Prime Minister, over the weekend you did express your condemnation of attacks on media personnel who were covering the A and B oil issue. We saw subsequently an apology issued by Mr. Bashka inviting the media to tour and so on. The Media Association has called for a boycott of the tour. Just wondering, are you satisfied with the response of Mr. Bashka as you are describing your friend in this apology?
It is not for me to be satisfied. I mean, I made my comment and I stand by the comment I made. And I trust that those who were wronged, it is for them to react to the apology.